Alright, now we're heading down Mill Lake Road. And these are the woods. This is the little town, or the little neighborhood that I lived in. Now the first thing that you notice when you come down Mill Lake Road is this house, which used to be the Babcock house, and I have no idea if they still live there. But they were like the Clampetts of our area. They were kind of like the mountain people. And this whole area here was the dump. But it's kind of like grown over now, and those woods out there, we used to play in all those woods all the time, and hunters used to go out there. Now what we're coming up to now is the big hill that goes down to the lake. And when I say big hill, you're going to say, what? You know, because it's really not that big of a hill. And the very first time I came down this hill, we turned left right here, and we came to this house right there, which was owned by Ed and Cleo Grice, because those are the people that we bought our house from. And now in this house right here is where Len Savage lived during the summer. His father was a police officer, and then other folks lived down here in some of these little cottages, but basically only for the summer. And that house right there, the Weavers lived. Now that's our lake. That's Mill Lake. Big lake, huh? Very, very, very big lake. Now the very first thing I encountered the day that we arrived was Jerry Smith, who was Ed Grice's stepson and Cleo's son, had fallen down this hill right here and had broken his arm in 3 places. That was the very first thing I encountered. This is the Weavers' old house, by the way. And this is Tommy Cook's house. We just found out that Tommy Cook now lives in Clearwater. Very, very fascinating. And then in that house lived a guy by the name of Red. I barely remember him. And then I don't remember who lived down here, but some folks live down here. And there's the hill that leads, you know, that surrounds the lake. And this is all woods. Now, I'm here to tell you that nothing has changed here since I was here last in 1965, or very little, other than the fact that they've paved the road. It used to be dirt with oil spread all over the top of it. But other than that, everything is pretty much the same. Nothing, you know, no great new construction. Everything is pretty much the same. Now, the other interesting thing that I saw here, that I noticed the very first time that we came, and before we went over to where our house is the creek that you saw as we were coming down the hill. Now at the time, the creek seemed really big and really interesting, and there were frogs in it and all kinds of stuff. And I really enjoyed exploring this creek that very first day. And you could hear the water running down it. Not so much now. And the other thing is that there was a boathouse at the end of the creek, which is no longer there. Now, these stairways are all relatively new that are going up here, and you'll see this deck that somebody built out here, which is very nice, but, you know, wasn't here. But other than that, everything's the same. Now, the interesting thing is, now there is Ed Grice's house, and you'll notice that it's not finished. That house has not been finished since we lived here. It was always under construction, and Ed never finished the house, and it's still not finished, and it's vacant, which is interesting. Now here's the creek coming up here that I found so interesting. Now here's one other thing. Up there, you see those woods? Well, that's a hill, and if you know where those trees are now, that's something that's new. Used to be a pathway, and we used to sled down that hill and take a giant Coke sign down that hill. Now you see this garage, or this little house right here? That used to be our garage, and that house right there is our old house. Aldo and I went to the house yesterday, or day before yesterday, and toured it. The folks were very nice, but that's our house right there. And this was the Pettibones' house, and this was the Trumbull's house, and there's the lake, and this is what used to be the public beach, but it's no longer a public beach. Now we're going to come up here and we'll come up to around the corner to the Little Lake. You know, that was Big Mill Lake, and now this lake here is Little Mill Lake. And it's not all that little, but it's little enough. Littler than Mill Lake. The red house that you're going to see up here on the right was my Uncle Dick's house. My dad and my Uncle Dick built this house years ago, 40-some years ago, right there on the lake. 3-bedroom, I think 1-bath house. And it's still there. Don't know who owns it now. And the other interesting thing is nobody used to swim in this lake, probably because it was so deep. But there's a raft out there, which you can see if you look around the corner, and it appears as though people swim there now. So, fascinating stuff. The other thing is this hill here that you're seeing outside this door used to all be sand, and we used to play up and down the sand of this hill. Up on the top of the hill is where the Pettibones used to live. Or I'm sorry, not the Pettibones. The Nickersons used to live in a big house that we'll see in a minute as we drive across here. The big house is for sale. The big Nickerson house is for sale. Now, over here in this field, we used to have BB gun fights, believe it or not. And that was great fun. Now, that trailer that's over there replaced Red DeFriest house, okay, which was torn down or burned down after we moved out. So that was interesting. And then down along this part of the lake is where, well, a bunch of people we knew lived. And that is the Nickerson house that is for sale right now for $189,000. And that's the end of our video tour.